Okay, let's dive in. If you're listening, maybe you're heading towards possibly one of the biggest academic moments yet.
The thesis defense.
Exactly. It feels like this massive peak after a really long climb, doesn't it? All that work, years maybe, and it comes down to this one event, often feels pretty intimidating.
Oh, definitely. It's got that high-pressure reputation.
Yeah.
You put everything into the research, the writing, and now you stand up in front of a committee.
Right.
But just seeing it as, an obstacle, that might be missing something. It really is an opportunity, too.
And that's exactly what we want to unpack today. How do you shift that view from something daunting to, well, a genuine chance to engage?
Yeah.
We're using some fantastic insights we found from an Instagram account, actually, called Akademik Practices. They shared some really sharp strategies for how to approach the defense.
We did. Really practical stuff. They broke it down into 7 key elements. And if you focus your prep around these, it can fundamentally change how you experience it.
How so?
Well, it moves you from just trying to, survive the evaluation. Yeah, get through it. To actively participating in this high-level academic chat about your work, your contribution.
And they make a really interesting point right at the start. It's not just about showing up and talking about the document itself. It's deeper.
That's spot on. It's about defending your scientific identity.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, how you handle the whole process, the prep, how you answer questions, your whole demeanor, it all signals how deeply you understand things, your critical thinking. Basically, your maturity as a researcher. It's kind of your first big public statement of who you are academically speaking.
Wow, okay. So let's get into these 7 strategies from academic practices. Sounds like a roadmap to not just, pass the defense, but actually make it valuable.
Right, make it affirming even.
So what's the first one they highlight?
Very first strategy, and it sounds simple, but it's key. Truly know your thesis.
Okay, seems obvious, but academic practices suggests it's more complex than just, having written it.
Exactly. It's easy to write it chapter by chapter, focusing on making each bit strong.
Sure.
But maybe losing sight of how every single piece connects, how it all flows together seamlessly. This first point is all about mastering the cohesion, the internal consistency of the entire work as one thing.
They actually pose some really specific questions, don't they, to test that understanding? Can you clearly explain how your research questions line up perfectly with your hypotheses?
Yes. Are they totally aligned? And critically, does the methodology you picked, did it strictly and logically serve those research goals?
So not just what you did, but why that specific method was genuinely the best choice for that particular question.
Precisely. And another big one, how do your findings get fully dealt with in the discussion? Do they loop back properly to the introduction, the literature you reviewed? Closing that circle, and maybe the foundation of it all. Can you state, really crisply, the exact gap in the literature your study fills? Why was this research actually needed?
Being able to answer those kinds of questions smoothly means you've gone past just putting chapters together. You actually own the whole intellectual project. The goal, like academic practices puts it so directly, is make sure no committee member knows your thesis better than you do.
And that deep, that kind of comprehensive knowledge, that's your absolute rock.
Right.
When you genuinely get the connections inside your own work, you can handle unexpected questions. You can trace them back to the core logic of your study. It just projects confidence, mastery.
Okay, that makes total sense. So building on that foundation, that command of your own work, the next strategy from academic practices is about looking ahead. Prepare in advance for frequently asked questions.
This is such good practical advice because, honestly, committees tend to ask similar things across defenses. There are just common themes they need to understand to evaluate any academic work properly.
Right. It's almost guaranteed someone asks why you picked this topic, isn't it? What initially drew you in?
Totally. Or they want to see if you grasp the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What are the current debates, the sort of hot topics in the literature that connect to what you did?
And methodology questions, of course. Always plenty of those.
Oh, yeah. Why this design? Why these participants? Or this data? And crucially, what are the limitations? What can't your method do?
And then the interpretation part. How do you actually make sense of what you found? What are the main takeaways? What does it all mean?
And academic practices doesn't just say think about these. They suggest you actually write down your answers.
Really, script them out.
Not necessarily word for word, but articulate them clearly. Maybe bullet points, short paragraphs. And then this is key, rehearse them. Talk them through with your advisor or maybe other students.
Ah, practicing out loud.
Yeah, it helps you smooth out the language, clarify your thinking, just get fluent with it. So when one of those common questions pops up in the real defense, bam, you've got a thoughtful, well-prepared answer ready to go.
Takes a lot of the on-the-spot pressure off, I bet.
Huge difference. Really boosts your confidence going in.
Okay. So know your work, anticipate the likely questions. What's the third strategy? It shifts focus a bit, right? To the evaluators themselves. Get to know the committee members.
Yes. This might feel a bit tactical, but it's totally legitimate academic prep. Each person on that committee has their own background, their expertise, their perspectives, even their pet peeves sometimes. Knowing this helps you anticipate where they might focus their attention.
So what does academic practices suggest, practically? How do you get to know them?
Well, review their recent publications, look for connections, even small ones, between your thesis topic and what they work on.
Okay.
Have they published using similar methods? Or maybe similar theories, similar populations?
No doubt.
Think about their reputation, too. Is Professor Smith known for grilling people on statistical assumptions? Is Dr. Jones always focused on the real-world implications?
So you can anticipate their likely angle.
Exactly. If you know that, you can mentally revisit those specific parts of your thesis through their lens.
Yeah.
Be extra sharp on those areas.
It's not about changing your answers to please them, is it?
No, not at all. It's about being ready to discuss your work intelligently from the perspective of their expertise. If you know someone's a stickler for methodology, you double-check you can provide the precise justification for your choices.
It adds another layer of being prepared, being strategic.
For sure. It just helps you cover your bases more effectively.
All right, strategy 4 from academic practices. This one's about the part everyone sees. Prepare an effective presentation.
Right. The Q&As in the main event, maybe, but your presentation, that sets the whole tone. It's your chance to guide the committee through your work's highlights on your terms before the questions start flying.
And how you present says a lot about your professionalism, your ability to communicate complex stuff clearly.
Definitely. Academic practices gives pretty standard but vital tips here. Use clear, understandable language. Don't get bogged down in tiny details that aren't crucial for the main story.
Avoid the weeds.
Exactly. And time management is massive. Most defense presentations are short, like 15, maybe 20 minutes.
That's not long to cover years of work.
It isn't. So you have to practice delivering it within that window. Rushing through it or going way over time really undermines your message.
Good point. What else?
Clear slide titles that, tell a story. A logical flow, usually intro, methods, key findings, conclusion, and implications. The standard structure.
And visuals.
Crucially, academic practices reminds us. Visuals support the narrative. They don't replace it. Slides help people follow along, maybe show a key graph or table.
But you're the one telling the story.
Precisely. You're the presenter. Don't just read dense text off your slides. That's not engaging.
So a well-put-together presentation shows you can synthesize all that work into something concise and compelling. It's like your first serious scientific talk.
Absolutely. Sets a positive tone, shows you respect their time. Okay, now moving into the interactive bit, the Q&A. Strategy 5 is crucial for handling that. Be open to criticism, but defend your work.
This is the part that often causes the most anxiety, right? The committee pointing out potential issues or asking really challenging questions, it can feel personal.
It really can feel like an attack. But academic practices makes a wise point. The committee isn't trying to hear you down. They're evaluating your understanding, your critical thinking, your ability to justify your choices.
Yeah.
Basically, assessing you as a researcher.
So frame it differently in your head. It's about the work, not about you personally.
Exactly. See it as a discussion about the work's strengths and its limitations, not a judgment on your intelligence.
So how should you respond? What's the advice?
Respond constructively. Listen hard to the criticism. Acknowledge points that are fair. And this is vital when you defend your choices. Do it with scientific reasoning, not just feelings or, well, my advisor said so.
Right. That example they gave was great if asked why you used a certain test.
Yeah, the answer isn't because it seemed easiest or my supervisor told me to. The answer should be something like, well, based on the nature of my data, explain it briefly, and the assumptions of this particular test, mention them. And given the research question I was addressing, remind them this specific method name, it offered the most appropriate and robust way to get at that question because explain the logic.
That shows you thought it through. You made an informed choice.
Exactly. And be ready to acknowledge limitations. Every study has them. but also be confident in highlighting what your study did contribute uniquely.
So receptive to suggestions for future work? Maybe, but stand firm on the choices you made for this thesis if you have solid rationale.
Precisely. That balanced openness to feedback plus confident defense of well-reasoned choices, that's what academic practices calls academic maturity. It shows you can handle critique like a professional.
That makes a huge amount of sense. Okay, moving beyond the words themselves. Strategy 6 is about how you carry yourself. Maintain a proper academic demeanor.
Yeah, your demeanor, body language, your tone, eye contact, even what you wear. It all communicates something about your seriousness, your confidence as a scholar. The source calls it your first serious appearance before an academic audience.
So simple things matter, like making eye contact with the committee members.
Definitely. It signals engagement, openness. Even if you're nervous inside, making that effort connects you with them.
And what about tough questions you just don't know the answer to?
That's a really important point from academic practices. It is perfectly okay, actually. It's good to know when and how to say something like, that's a really interesting angle. I haven't considered that specifically, but I'd like to read more about it. Or, that's a great point for future research. I didn't explore that here.
Rather than trying to bluff.
Oh, definitely don't bluff. It's
Yeah.
usually obvious and it hurts your credibility. Showing intellectual honesty, that willingness to learn, that's valued.
Good advice. What else about demeanor?
Speaking calmly with controlled breathing. Try not to rush. Even if your heart's pounding, it makes you sound more considered. And, while clothes aren't everything, choosing something formal but simple shows respect for the occasion and respect for yourself as a professional stepping into this arena.
Academic practices sums it up nicely, doesn't it? When you show respect for the process and yourself, it encourages the committee to respect you back as a budding scholar.
Exactly. Okay, finally, the 7th strategy from academic practices. And this one might be the biggest mindset shift. Do not see the process as just passing.
Ah, yeah. This is huge because so many students are just laser focused on getting through it, getting the degree signed off, being done.
Totally understandable. But the source frames the defense as potentially much, much richer than that. It's not just an endpoint. It's a turning point for shaping your academic identity.
Yeah.
It's not solely an evaluation. It's an opportunity for scientific dialogue.
Think about you've got this room full of experts, people in related fields, all focusing their attention intensely on your research, asking smart, probing questions. When else do you get that kind of personalized, high-level feedback?
Almost never. And the benefits listed by academic practices go way beyond just getting the diploma, the questions asked. Often incredibly valuable feedback.
How so?
They might spot a gap in your logic you missed. They might suggest a different way to interpret your findings, or propose completely new research ideas that build directly on what you've done.
Right. Those suggestions could be absolute gold for future publications. A committee member's question could spark your next study or suggest a better analysis for turning a chapter into a paper.
And don't forget the relationship aspect. This defense is a chance to seriously engage with senior scholars in your field. It can open doors, future collaborations, networking, maybe finding mentors who now really know your work.
So if you reframe it, not as a final exam, but more like a launch pad, seeing it as the start of your research journey after the thesis, that changes the whole feel of the day, doesn't it?
Completely changes the energy. It can turn that anxiety into, well, maybe even excitement about what comes next. These 7 strategies from academic practices, taken together, they offer a really holistic approach.
Yeah, they seem to cover everything.
They help you master not just the text in your thesis, but the whole process of presenting, discussing, defending your intellectual contribution.
They empower you to walk in prepared, confident, able to handle challenges, but also open to learning. Ready to show that you're not just a student who finished a task, but a capable researcher joining the conversation.
Because, as academic practices concludes, it's about more than just the document. It's about a well-prepared researcher standing up and confidently defending their own work, their academic stance.
It really feels like stepping onto a stage, maybe even a tightrope for some. But these insights, they're like sturdy guide ropes, practical tools to help you channel that stress into purpose. You've already done the enormous work of the thesis itself.
That's the mountain climbed already.
Right. Now, these strategies help you step fully into the role of defending that work with confidence, with poise.
You really are ready.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take with you as you prepare. If you truly embrace this idea that your defense is less a final judgment and much more an initial high-level dialogue about your work, an opportunity to engage, to learn, maybe even spark future collaborations, how might that fundamentally change how you prepare over the coming days or weeks? What new possibilities does that perspective unlock, not just for the defense day itself, but for your whole academic future?
Something powerful to consider. Best of luck with your preparation. You've absolutely got this.